What would happen if the government wasn't the middleman in money? How many checks and balances would we have? My name's Eric. This is Above My Pay Grade. Let's get into it. So there's plenty of videos out there about Bitcoin, and I think a lot of people are confused by it, especially folks like my parents, people that, people say it's magic internet money, and it does sound kind of hokey. But I think it's important to understand one of the problems we have today is the massive amount of manipulation and control the government has over the value of money. And there's a huge part of my channel is beating this drum. It's because government can do things like send 40 billion over to Ukraine without even having to tax its citizens. But they do it in the long run, but they run on 4 years. So consequences be damned. And there's a lot of consequences to financial mismanagement, not least of which is civil unrest, and wars are fought over financial mismanagement. Because a lot of people think, all you think about is money and economics, and I said this about COVID too. But downstream from economic issues are social issues, are people not being able to eat, civil unrest. There's a lot of things that happen when society breaks down and economic trust breaks down. So the government does a very good job of that, breaking down economic trust. But for millennia, gold was the currency. And if you've heard anything about Rome, they started clipping coins and devaluing their currency. But the same principle of gold, the fact that it takes labor to make and mine, the fact that it cannot be printed by the government, and the government doesn't own it per se. When you have it, you own it. Those same principles apply to Bitcoin. And if you don't know anything about Bitcoin, I'm not going to talk all about what it is and how it works. But I do want to ask a couple questions to make you potentially think. Number one, what are our options? Okay, so right now we have the dollar, which is printed into oblivion and has been for most people that are alive today. We have a CBDC that supposedly the government's going to come out with, a central bank digital currency, which there's pros and cons to that, mostly cons. And the one pro I would say, if it happens, is if that central bank digital currency is on the blockchain, you see where the money goes. So that's one pro. But I don't see how it's going to be any different than the dollar as far as printing the item that people use as a value to their labor. So the government's going to print CBDCs probably even more than they do dollars today. So how do we fix this problem? That incentive, no government wants to change that, because that's where all their power comes from. Their power comes from printing and promising. And those promises, the consequences of those promises, things like Social Security, pensions, all those consequences will be felt decades down the road. I'll be long gone out of office. My neighbors. But that's going to continue to happen. Like, no politician is not going to take that bait. So what do we do? What solution is there? A lot of people say gold, and I like gold, I like silver too, but are we going back to a gold-backed currency? Potentially. But there was a lot of distortions with gold. And if you look into why we came off the gold standard in 1971, it's because we were printing more dollars than we had gold, and people were trying to redeem their dollars for gold, and we didn't have enough. So even though the currency was backed by gold, that incentive is still there, right? It's kind of a wink and a nod, like who's the third party auditing the amount of gold, right? But Bitcoin, I will tell you this, is an open ledger, so everyone can see what's being spent and where it's being spent, where it's being stored. Your name's not attached, but I think this could be an answer to solving a lot of the problems, or I'll say this, a lot of the incentives, because I don't think you can change the human heart and our propensity to do evil things. We all have that capacity, but at least you can take away corrupt incentives. And I think the dollar system, if it's continually mismanaged the way it is today, it'll probably be the downfall of the United States as we know it, as the empire we know it. Why? Because look at history. Almost always is the reason: overextending and overspending. So how do we rein this back in when this corrupt incentive exists? My belief is you get out of the dollar system as much as you can right now. And that's why I'm such a huge fan of Bitcoin, not because it's magic internet money, not because price go up, which a lot of people online will say, hey, the price always goes up and you can make millions of dollars. That could be true, by the way. But to me, it's if you own your money and you don't need a third party. A lot of people don't understand this because the banking system's second nature. But we have to go through a payment system, Visa, MasterCard, go through our bank to exchange. Bitcoin, you don't need a third party. There's trust built into the system because you don't need to trust the individual you're sending to. It's verified. And so there's a lot of good aspects to it. And if you follow the Bitcoin community at all, if you've never really looked into it at all, here's what I encourage you to do. Look into the Bitcoin community and see a lot of the thinkers in the Bitcoin community are Austrian economists. They understand what's going on in the United States. They understand the math of our national debt and how it's untenable. And they have a really good argument as to how Bitcoin solves that problem. And I think it does too. I'm not an all-in Bitcoin guy. Like, I don't put all my money in there. But if you're a skeptic, right? I'll say a couple things about Bitcoin. If you're a skeptic, if it's just magic internet money Ponzi scheme, it could be shut down and hacked and all that. Arguably one of the most technologically advanced countries in the world, China, outlawed it. And if it can be shut down, manipulated, and it's some kind of crazy internet Ponzi scheme, do you think China would have the ability to do it? I think so. So why'd they outlaw it? Why did a communist country like China outlaw Bitcoin? When you dig into that, I think you'll kind of find reasons why people like me love it, okay? But it's one of the things in this world that gives me hope for the future as to like things we can do right now that can change for the next generation. But if we keep going down this Ponzi scheme, you've heard the World Economic Forum say by 2030 you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. How they can get you to that point is they control the means of exchange. If they can control the value of what you work for and drop it to zero, yeah, you'll own nothing because you can't afford anything. Because yes, you can work, but you're now in a barter system because they've destroyed the currency. Can't do that with Bitcoin. So I would encourage you, if you've always been a skeptic, read the book, The Bitcoin Standard, and most of you watching this channel understand the problems in our current system today. But to understand why I'm so passionate about Bitcoin, you have to understand the problems we have in our society and the problems we have with the financial system, and how a new politician won't change that, and different voters won't change that. The incentives and the way the system is set up, it's rife with corruption, overspending, and I would say people getting rich off the labor of others, which I'm a capitalist, but we don't live in a capitalist society today. We live in a corporatist society where if you rub shoulders with the right people, if you're close to the printer, you get the most money. And anyways, I think Bitcoin solves a lot of these problems. Look into it. Read the Bitcoin Standard. Let me know what you guys think about Bitcoin in the comments. If you're a believer and you have skeptics in your family that are like, usually those people have never even read about it. And it does sound, trust me, it does sound hokey, right? There's money on the internet. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you break down some of those barriers and you're like, well, you trade just digits right now. Most people just transact with their debit card and it's just digits on the screen. So what if those digits on the screen weren't controlled by a third party? It was just controlled by math. And it couldn't be distorted. The math couldn't be distorted. That'd be a good thing. So it's something that I think people should read about and do a lot of research on. So anyways, let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys in the next one.